Welcome back to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we check out a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix's 86th film. It's the 2018 Italian drama Forgive Us Our Debts, or Rimetti, I nostri debiti, and it's don't laugh. And it's directed by Antonio Morabito. It stars Claudio Santamaria, Marco Giannelli, Giallini and Jerzy Stuhr. I am Jesse, and I am here with my co-host MJ. Hey MJ.
Hello, mate. But are you here with me? Is the main question.
This is a little bit of a weird one for us. This is our first podcast not sitting across the table from each other.
It is very weird, but I'm sure we'll settle into it very nicely. But we did discuss whether we should meet together and do it as normal, but with all the COVID-19 restrictions, we would rather play it safe. And yeah, I don't know when I'm going to see you next, Jesse. That's the thing.
And I can't even see your face.
I know.
Can't bounce off your emotions.
We're not that technologically advanced yet. We've got the cameras working, but you know what? I'm sure we could probably figure that out very easily. We could even just do that on another side bit, but we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. We've worked through tough conditions before, and we'll make it work again.
So yeah, we'll give this a crack today. Being in completely different locations rather than together, and hopefully the experience isn't any different, I guess.
Well, the good thing is this is a film I want to talk about, so I don't really care about being in the same room with you or feeding off anything that you do or say. I just want to hear we've got to talk about this film, so that's a plus straight away.
Good. All right. Well, so we are talking about Forgive Us Our Debts.
Mm-hmm.
We start our show with our fast flicks, where we do our own little quick summary of the film. And MJ, I want you to start us off and tell us, what are your thoughts on Forgive Us Our Debts?
Yeah, right. So Guido becomes a debt collector to, ironically, pay off his crippling debts. Working with one of the best in the business, he explores whether it's possible to separate his work self from his personal self, and if being in a shameful profession actually makes you a bad person.
Oh, that was sweet. I liked that. That's a really good summary.
Thanks, mate.
Mine, I was like, as usual. I'm going just short and sweet and nothing like yours.
Good.
So
Glad they have to be different.
I've just gone the moral ambiguity of collecting debts through two different sets of eyes.
Oh, mate, it's actually not that dissimilar. Like, I think it's fair to say we're on the same point straight away. So at least we're going to make a bit more sense when we're chatting about it.
I agree. Now, this one, I'm going to put it out there early. I watched this quite a while ago. Well, not quite a while ago, but it's not as fresh in my mind as usual. So
we did have to delay a little bit with everything going on in the world. We did have to delay this one a little bit because I'm the same. I probably watched it about a week ago, but
yeah. So you're going to have to keep me on my toes to remind me of what's actually going on.
But Jesse, you are a notoriously good note taker, so I think you'll be able to lean on your own notes.
Hopefully the notes get me through because I haven't got your face.
Hey, are you wearing your Baby Driver t-shirt?
Oh, I tell you what, I was prepared. I should send a photo.
Are you actually wearing it?
Yeah, why wouldn't I?
Good
I would like the episode.
You said you would 2 episodes ago as well. Did you really? Are you actually wearing it?
Yeah.
Good work.
I'll have to send a photo through later.
Please do. I'm impressed because I planned on bringing it up and I was like, well, he could just lie about this, but I think that's good.
Could. Well, maybe I won't send a photo and just see if you trust me.
I trust you. Actually, you know, I'm wearing a t-shirt from The Shining actually right now.
Oh,
yeah, just nice. by pure chance. But yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, we often then have a look at what we can find out about this film. Now, this one, an Italian film.
Oh, you just took my one note.
Yeah. I was going to say I struggled. Absolutely struggled.
Yeah, I was probably worse. I found out that it was called. I found out that it was actually called, as you mentioned, Rimetti I nostri debiti.
That was good.
In Italian. That actually felt good. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to read it out that nicely. And I can tell you that it's an Italian film. And Jesse, I can't really tell you much more about this movie. I can't tell you how it was made, when it was filmed, when Netflix came on board. I just couldn't find it.
I got a budget. Did you get the budget?
I didn't get a budget. No.
So it was an estimated 2 million euros, which is about 3.6 million Australian. Okay. So pretty low. Yeah, very low.
Very low budget.
Obviously filmed in Italy.
Yep.
In Rome. What else? So hit Netflix on the 4th of May, 2018.
Yep.
And then it went on at the Warsaw Film Festival in October, same year, before hitting Netflix in Poland in late October. So interesting.
So Poland had it So what, 6 months after, or 5 months after
Yeah, 5 months after. So they must have held it from Netflix because they knew they were
it
going to
was going
play
to
it at this
go?
film
Yeah,
festival.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually quite interesting. I just
Yeah.
wonder. One thing I always like to know is when Netflix got involved, because we've had a few international films recently when Netflix got involved really early. So they understood that they wanted to have an international film within their service, and they got on board and they did it and they got it made. But we also see quite a bit where the film gets made, a production company sells it to a distributor, and then that's when Netflix comes in. So I'm annoyed that I couldn't find that out, because it always helps just get a feel for why it's sitting on the service.
Yeah, and you always do a good job in filling us, more me, myself, and the audience in on that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right, what about some of the consensus then? What were you able to find?
Well, I can tell you firstly that it's a very little watched film. Some of the rating numbers that we've seen on other films make this one look minuscule, to use lack of a better word. But it's got a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which is pretty serviceable, and that's from
Hmm.
1,159 ratings. And a 2.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So a little bit lower, not too much lower, but a little bit lower on Letterboxd. But that's only of 350 ratings on Letterboxd. That's as
That's
low a
very
number
low.
I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, so not many people have seen this one.
So what is it? It's
It's fair to
2008. So it's
say.
it's it's basically 2 years old, just under 2 years old. So being on a streaming service like Netflix, it's allowed to have time to grow. But with the way that
So,
Netflix
yeah,
releases content, it gets lost very, very quickly.
yeah. So Google users, there was a rating for this one.
Mm,
It was at 79%. So it's
yeah.
fairly middle of the range, I guess, for Google users. Um, Rotten Tomatoes. We didn't speak about that one,
Mm.
but this one was in. There was only two reviews, and they were both positive, but it doesn't give it a consensus or a percentage. So
Two,
the
two is
audience
just
as
nowhere
well,
near enough
yeah,
to, yeah.
two's nothing. But the audience, there was only 12 people on Rotten Tomatoes, but that was extremely low at 25%, which is a little bit different to the rest of the
Yeah,
ratings,
it
I guess.
is. So it's 12 people. Like, you and me could
Yeah,
go on there. You and me could jump on Rotten
and
Tomatoes after this and really change that number, or we could get ourselves as actual reviewers and double that.
exactly. So
so,
yeah, so I think the overall picture for this one is not many people have seen it.
so you know what? Because the ratings are few and far between, you should listen to us, and what we're going to say should have a really good bearing, because we're probably going to go more in depth than most have.
Well, it sounds like an amazing segue, MJ. Amazing. So, what are your early thoughts on this one?
Well, I will, not that we're going to go into it yet, but I will put a spoiler alert on. If you do want to watch this film, and very few people have actually seen it, so if you do want to watch it, we're probably going to spoil it over the next half hour, 45 minutes. So go
Yeah,
watch
I'd
it,
say so.
and then come back and have a listen, because I'm curious to see what Jesse's got to say, and I'm keen to chat about it. So if not, and you just
Good.
want to hear us chat about it, then here we go. So personally, um, I got pretty into this film. I got pretty into the character study of it, or I guess the discussion of your own moral conscience. The
Hmm.
actual side story of it never really pulled me in, which was probably a bit of a concern. But I was super into Franco as a character, and his chemistry with Guido, but more so Franco. Um, so in general, I thought it was well paced. I thought it continued to rise to a point where the climax was really satisfying, without being overly explicit. So it did a fair bit right for me.
Good. That's a pretty good wrap from you early on. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. To me, like, yeah, I think I liked it. I did struggle at the start though to sort of work out who was
Mm.
who.
Yep. Yep.
And that sort of put a bit of a dampener on it for me at the start. And it was like it was a slow film. Like it wasn't like you said. It's all about these characters.
Yeah.
But I thought it was decently made, and the message in it was quite good. I thought so. Yeah, I'm on the positive side for this one.
Yeah, I mean the message was good, albeit a bit of a head scratcher. Like it doesn't necessarily tell you something that you wants you to think. It makes you question it yourself and apply it to your own life and apply it to your own decisions. Which I'm really big on that kind of stuff. But I definitely get what you're saying with it was slow and difficult and a little bit confusing early on. And I think for me the
Hmm.
main thing with that is it's just a story about debt collectors is just not that exciting. And I think I said, like,
imagine pitching that, like going to someone, hey, I've got this film that's about debt collectors and
yeah,
what they do.
exactly. Which is why, if you look at mine and your Fast Flicks, we mentioned more about the moral consciousness
Yeah,
side of the story, which is the story, and that's how you would pitch it.
correct. And that's obviously how we've both taken it. So,
Yeah, exactly, because that is what
cool.
you take out of it, as opposed to, so there's this guy who's in a lot of debt, and then he gets a job as a debt collector. Like, it's all important to the overall narrative, but it's not what makes the film what it is, because that stuff was pretty dull, and it wasn't until Franco became more of a character for me that I actually got into it.
Well, let's segue again because I think
Wow, yeah.
Franco's a yeah. I like this. I
Two
like this. This
times
is
I
this.
haven't even meant to segue, and as soon as I said it, I've nailed it. I'm well aware
Well,
I've nailed.
as
I might be a
soon
better
as you're saying it,
podcaster remotely, so I keep this up.
gives me a good chance to jump on it because otherwise I can't see where you're going to finish up. So I'm like, cool, let's jump on it. So yeah, Franco. Let's talk about some characters, and we'll start off with Franco because I think, like you've mentioned, he was a very interesting character.
Mm.
Hello. Oh, good. Sorry, I thought we'd
Yeah,
lost
yeah.
you. That worried me. What are your thoughts on him?
No, no. So I was just listening to you, mate. Yeah, I thought he was awesome. I thought he was this awesome, complex character because, do you like him? Do you not like him? Is he an absolute prick? Is he a guy who's
Yeah.
just good at his job? Like, where does his moral compass actually point? And I, I kind of was just asking those questions from start to finish, and I still don't necessarily know where I end up with him. Like, I think I like
Yeah,
him.
yeah. Yeah, they
You
do
go.
this good
Yeah.
job of they do this good job of, making him sort of is this character that just doesn't take any crap whatsoever.
Mm,
And he stands his ground, and he argues what he wants. And this strength that he sort of shows, means that he's able to deal with these hard parts of work and not necessarily have to reflect as much as Guido has to. Um,
yeah.
and but I still like you said, it's hard to work out. Like he does all that, and you're like, oh, he's not really that nice a guy or a good guy for doing that. But at the same time, like there's this stage where he starts giving compliments to Guido and
Mm.
inviting him into his house. So there are these parts in him that aren't necessarily all bad.
Well, I think despite the fact that he is all business in that role, he's really aware of the bad things that he does. Like, he literally goes to confession, which is almost,
Mm,
an explicit way of saying this guy gets it. But he literally goes to confession as his own means of coping and moving on. And you discover that his family and their well-being is basically his main priority, and that's pretty noble. That the reason that he is doing this job, and the reason that he is so good at this job, and obviously well paid, is to service his family. And he does some really tough things, and he treats people in a really ordinary way. But you can look at these situations and go, yeah, but these guys are doing the wrong thing. Like, if he doesn't do it, these guys are just going to potentially harm
gonna get
themselves even
away.
more.
Yeah.
Like, so it's,
Mm,
but then you get a situation where you get a guy who's committing suicide purely because of their presence, and that's where it becomes this moral. I kind of almost wanted you to watch this movie and not like Franco, because I get it both ways. I get both sides of it, and I think people who might have been in a position where they're struggling with debt, and they may have had debt collectors coming at their house, and you think, like, these guys are just bad people. They're just prying off people who can't afford to pay it. But
can afford it. Yeah.
but but,
Yeah.
but they were the ones that
I'm.
put themselves in that. Like, that's why
Yeah.
I love it. I love that you're questioning yourself by watching it.
Hmm. I do like too that you've mentioned that there was a scene where a character did die, and I picked up on that one this week. I didn't miss that compared to
That was
I
one
was
of the
after our last episode.
revelations of our sometimes podcast, is when I said, so he died at the end, and you were like, huh? And we went,
So
went
yes,
and rewatched it, and yeah, that
if
was
you're
great.
wondering what we're talking about, that was last week's episode. Sometimes where I completely missed the end. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, I saw that one. That was good. All right. Well, should we talk about Guido? I think we
yeah,
should talk about
I
Guido
think we should.
because I think he's the character that we probably saw the change through. Because Franco, there wasn't really any change in him. Um,
Hmm.
so he was like Guido was this moral compass sort of to start off with, and it slowly sort of fades away throughout the film. Um, and he obviously knows he owes money, and he knows he's never going to be able to pay any of this money back. So he offers, to pay back his debts in his time, and he's
Mm-hmm.
really disgusted to start off with this type of work,
Mm,
and and you just see these little bits throughout that when he tries to build this relationship with Rena, and he's got this professor that he really cares about, that
mm.
I don't think I could ever see him actually turning into Franco. And I kind of like that you've got this character that is never going to get to that side, I think.
Yeah, but then that continues to beg the question of, is that side a bad side? And
Yeah.
um, yeah, for me, like, and you're right, like Guido is kind of he's the audience in that sense. Like we are introduced to him immediately, and the most interesting character in this film we meet through Guido, which is Franco.
Mm,
Um, so I think in all this sense, the audience will generally sympathize and side with Guido. Um, but at the end, and this is kind of why, not that you have to choose one or the other, but why I side with Franco over Guido is that at the end you've got a man with Guido who is sitting in the exact same spot at the exact same bar, symbolizing that he hasn't moved on from his rut of a
mm.
life. When you start this film, he's in an absolute hole, and when you end this film,
It's in the
he's
same
got
spot.
some
Yeah.
experience, but he is physically in the exact same spot. Um, and the end of the film, Franco, he is at church. I think he might have just done his confession. He's doing the Lord's Prayer, and he is
Mm,
moving on. And that's the thing with Franco. No matter what he does, he just continues to move forward. He always moves forward. And I love that
yeah.
when that first confession that Franco had, how he's like, I was rude to a waitress, because the things that he did that were the wrong things to do, he he confessed. But when he never confessed about the stuff about taking people or getting people to pay their debts or anything. He never that was never an issue for him. So he could see the good and bad, and he could see the difference between work and not work. And Guido couldn't see anything like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that it was really, really important that they did show him going to confession prior to it just being this thing at the end. Like, it was really good that they, like you said, they show that
It's a trend,
throughout.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that he builds up a whole bunch of stuff and does it once. He's continually doing it after he does these things that he knows aren't probably morally correct.
Yeah, and I'm also not saying that it's as clear cut as Franco's good because he moves on, Guido's bad because he's stuck on a rut. Because you could easily look at Guido's story and applaud him for taking that moral high ground. And I'm not suggesting that he ever did that wrong thing, but it connected so much more with me, Franco's story. And by the end, they were polar opposites, or almost polar opposites. But and that's why I tend to go down a route. And you could watch this film and go the exact opposite way and go, well, here's a guy who doesn't want to stuff with his friends, and he's got this power to be able to, rid people of their debt, and he chooses not to. And that's why there's just so many questions that you can ask yourself that you can take this film in a different way.
Hmm. Good. All right. What other characters would you like to speak about? Because I thought I'd briefly talk about the professor.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I, I just thought it was like, yeah, and we'll probably talk about him a bit more in some of the scenes, but
Mm.
this idea that he's this crazy sort of conspirator, and I just had this feeling for him the whole time that he was just missing his wife. Like, to me,
Mm.
that was
He was just a
that
lonely old
was
man,
the
wasn't he?
the
Yeah.
heart. Yeah, yeah, that was the heart of his character. So that was all I had on him.
I actually really like the professor. Just for no other reason, he's just a character that they made me like. But like he felt like a very secondary character, but they set him up as this guy who had no issues financially. He actually helped Guido out when he actually needed money, and then you find out that he's one that's in debt, and he's the one that hasn't paid back the money. And then it makes you think, what does this actually say about debt? There's people who are taking out loans they can't pay off, and this is a
Mm.
guy that I've liked from the start, but it just
I did
adds
not. I
to
did not see that at all. I did not see that turn of him being someone who owed
nah.
money. I probably should have as well, but I didn't.
And I no, exactly. I think that's why they've done it so well to make you think like it's not black and white. You can't sit there and go, Franco's doing a good thing because these people are bad people who take out loans and they shouldn't have got it. It's like anyone can be in this position, and that's what makes you wonder what this does this moral high ground exist and who should take it and where do I sit on it. And just the movie last 20 minutes just had me asking these questions over and over again. And even after I watched it, I still was continuously asking myself these questions. And that was clever how they used the professor for that.
Good, yeah. All right. Last character, I think Rena, that we need
Yeah.
to sort of touch base on. Um, I liked that she was this character that she verbally said it and was like, I don't feel home in Italy. All these people are sad, and she didn't want to become that. And I liked that she was that comparison to all these people who have debts or are collecting debts, and you don't
Mm.
really see them that happy very often.
We know what she did.
Yeah.
She had aspirations.
Hmm.
She had plans to move on. She had plans to keep moving, which again is the opposite to what Guido was. So again, it's not as black and white. But here's this character they were never going to work because one of them was happy-go-lucky, always happy to keep moving. One of them was in a rut, and you know what? If you look at his actions, he didn't necessarily ever want to get out of that rut. So
Good. I really liked your breakdown of these characters. You must have enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
the characters did it for me because the
Yeah.
narrative, it's the plot itself was not that exciting, but yeah, I thought the characters were really well developed and really well crafted, and you saw them from 360 degrees, and it was the reason why this film really worked.
Good. All right. Well, there's no other characters I don't think that do you want to
Nah,
talk
there's
about?
nothing else.
No.
Nah.
So the director Antonio Morabito,
Mm.
he's done 4 shorts and a documentary, but this is his second feature, from
Yeah.
what I could gather.
Yeah, same.
Um,
So he did a feature in 2013 called The Medicine Seller. But
yep.
apart from that, writer and director for a few shorts and documentaries. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously an Italian director, but I don't know much more about
Yeah.
him.
Me either. What about the cast? I didn't really. Yeah. They're all fairly decent.
They certainly were. Yeah, as I said, I fell in love with the character of Franco, and I thought uh, Marco Giallini, who played Franco, was so commanding on screen, like
Hmm.
a real presence, and
Yeah,
full marks
you
to
could
him.
tell he's got his acting chops. You'd say he's done his rounds.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I was super impressed and just I wanted him on screen all the time.
All right, so let's have a chat about some scenes then. What are some ones that stood out for us to start off with?
You want me to go, don't you?
I do, I sure
You
do,
do.
because
I knew you
I
would,
can feel the positivity of what you're going to say.
I do have a few scenes that I did enjoy. Again, as always, I'll go through them chronologically in where they appeared. But I enjoyed it when they were putting the heat on Mr. Cabrera. Now that's a name that sticks in my head because Mr. Cabrera, Mr. Cabrera, Cabrera. Um, but when they finally got to him and had him chatting, and he kind of said that you have my word. And then he's like, "What do you think, Guido? Do we trust? Do we take his word?" And Guido said, "It's the last thing a debtor has, and he'd be crazy to
Yeah,
risk it." Just really got you inside this world of debt, and the fact that Guido is also in debt. He truly understood that. So that was
that
when
was
I
a really good line.
first, yeah, it was when I first really got into the film, and that was probably half an hour in, to be perfectly frank.
Good.
Um, and then from then it was that scene at the confessional booth. So it doesn't, as I said before, it doesn't mention anything about his work. There's nothing that he's ashamed of in that sense. He sees that as the business side of things, and but the other things that are questionable about him, he does feel guilt for, and that's his ability to keep moving on. And this is when you slowly start to see all these dimensions to the character of Franco, and that was really when I started to take note of him.
Hmm.
The
Good.
scene where he takes the bribe from that family, I just enjoyed seeing that scene build and seeing the lengths he'll go to. And now I feel like that scene was more for Guido to test how far Guido could actually
Okay.
go. I don't think this is a thing that Franco does every single day if he's going to write off debt. And I like the principle behind it. I'm doing a massive thing for these guys. They need to understand it. But I think a lot of that he was putting on a show for Guido, and this he's going to check if Guido's going to break or not, and evidently he does. So,
He does, yeah.
but I just like the
Very
way that
difficult.
scene really built because it was like, hang on, where are they going with this? This just seemed like an ordinary couple at a house call.
And
So,
and you could see from Guido, like that whole scene around that kitchen table, like how uncomfortable he was that whole
oh
time.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
it was almost awkward to watch. Like,
Yeah, exactly. But it was awkward to watch, right? It was super awkward to watch because what he was doing was pretty ordinary. But then again, you know, I'd rip up my wedding photo if I could write off some crippling debt that I had. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
good. All right, what else?
hope my
Anything to
hope
say?
my wife's not listening to this episode.
I'll
um,
tell her.
I liked seeing Franco smoking on the porch when he wasn't able to sleep after that suicide.
Mm,
Because it just takes its toll on him. And he's by himself after his wife sort of said, "You're all right," and he just repeats to himself and says, "I'm fine." Yes, like He's not like
Hmm.
this is not something that is just water off a duck's back for him, because he is still human, even though when he's in the job he's somewhat robotic. But um,
He has the ability to deal with it better than Guido does.
exactly right.
Yeah, that's
And
what
you
it is.
see him dealing with it, and he still has to deal with it. He doesn't just move on without trying. So that's what I really respect about this character: his ability to keep pushing himself, but finding ways to get through it.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously the scene with the professor, I kind of talked about this before, it just brought up so many questions and emotions, at a time when I was just questioning whether what they're doing is actually bad, and whether who's a bad guy for feeling this way. And that all culminated in that scene. There's question, question, question in my head, and I love it when I do that in a film. I love it when a
Good.
film actually gets me to question my own moral conscience and
Hmm.
discover who's good and who's bad. So well done.
I'm
And then
pretty.
just
I'm pretty sure you wouldn't chase people for debts, though. I can probably say that about you.
but again, like that's the question: is they're, they're not doing the right thing by not being able to pay off this money. And I know the circumstances are different for everybody, but some people are rorting the system, and someone has to call them out. So I get it. I certainly wouldn't want to do it as a job. I struggle with it, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
think. Yeah, I think the legalities of that line they sort of have of the physicality almost like
Mm,
there's got to be there's like some sort of blur there.
it's a
For
good
me
point.
anyway.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
far they actually push them, and he's literally trying to break people.
Yeah.
And then finally, Guido and Franco in the cemetery, you get a real sense of Franco and the struggles that he goes through. He finally
Mm.
breaks and opens to Guido and says, "Well, you think that this is easy for me. You think that I want to do this." And because as an audience, you don't necessarily have a reason to think that he doesn't think like that. They've given you hints along the way that he is human and he is multidimensional. But that was
Yeah.
just like his raw emotion of like, you know what? You wanted to see the real me. This is the real me, but it's come at the cost of our friendship for you testing me that way. And loved it.
Good. That's some really good scenes, and
There were
I've
some good
got
scenes.
similar. I've got similar sort of stuff, and a few of your ones I've sort of combined, I guess, almost into one big sort of
Hmm.
like segment, I guess. But
I
I'll
like
start
it.
off in the chronological order. I I just one of the scenes that I really liked was when Guido went back to his boss in the workshop, and this boss had given him such a hard time about not being able to drive this forklift properly, and and he turns around, comes back, and puts this boss in that forklift. I just thought that was excellent, just
That
showing him
was
getting that
great.
revenge.
And you know
Yeah,
what? How about him getting the ass because he said, "Jump out! I'm going to do this one," and then he did it,
mm.
and he's like, "Oh, I could have done that," and he goes, "Yeah, but like no," he goes, "Like you almost tripped it, or you almost tipped it," and he goes, "Oh, yeah, but I didn't." But he never actually did the wrong thing.
No,
Like he just pulled him out before he might have done the wrong thing, and then he still got sacked. Pretty unfair.
yeah, it was. Yeah, you felt for
But I
him early
guess
on.
they wanted that guy to be an absolute dick, so he could get his
Can
comeuppance
do
later
that
on.
joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked when Franco took Guido home to meet his family,
Mm,
especially like with his kids there. It sort of showed that you've seen this guy who doesn't really trust people and is just but he trusts this guy, and he goes to that effort to say your debt's been paid off. I'm paying that
mm,
off for you, sort of thing.
hmm.
I just really felt that connection and thought that was a really nice scene.
I think he even dropped the
Um,
friend word at one point in that.
yeah, I think you did too. And then the last thing are a few of the scenes that you'd spoken about, but I just thought from Guido's reaction when they were sitting at that table that we spoke about,
Mm,
to then the guy falling off the balcony.
mm,
It was just it shows that he was human and he had this ability to stop himself, sort of following in these same footsteps that Franco was going in. That
hmm.
not necessarily saying they're bad footsteps, but he had that moral compass of himself or his own thoughts of what he should be doing, and he discovered or realized that's not who I
For
want to be.
sure.
And I did like that, and it shows you he goes to this bar and he bawls his eyes out to Rena,
Mm,
and and then we get that confrontation in the cemetery too, and he
mm,
finishes off, "I've tried, but I'm not like you."
hmm.
I really liked that line. I just thought there was a nice little that final bit was just it put it all together really nicely.
Yeah, nah, it's yeah. I love even hearing you talking about it. It was just so well done, that climax of that film. Really well done.
Yeah. All right. Well, what are some things that maybe you didn't enjoy?
You know what, Jesse? I actually I do the one thing I don't like to write too many notes when I'm watching, but I do like to
Yeah.
just jot down scenes. That's the one thing I do like to jot down and go, oh, that was good, or that was good, or that bit was good or bad. I didn't write down anything negative in the film, and now that was probably not reflective of exactly how I felt about this film. So I've got one
Yeah,
thing here that I wrote retrospectively, and it was
sure.
just the fact that the first half hour of the film I struggled to get into, and I think that was just mainly because Guido, who's arguably the main protagonist, just had a largely uninteresting story and backstory, and it just never pulled me in. And you know what? If I was to rewatch this film, um, I'd get a few minutes in and be like, "Oh, that's right. We got to slog through all this crap that I don't care about." So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a fair
that's that's
point.
that's
Yeah.
the main thing.
All right. I got a couple of specific scenes.
Yep.
The we spoke before about the professor, and this almost lost me right at the start, where
Oh
he's
yeah.
in his house playing billiards or pool,
Mhm.
and he uses all these analogies of cauliflower to explain, the Italian political system. And to me, this was like way too confusing, way too early on when my attention needed to be grabbed. Um,
Okay. Yep.
you know, I would have preferred to know the characters a little bit and then lead me into the professor and his ridiculous analogies. Like it was too much. Like
It's not a bad
especially when
call.
it's yeah, that just
I
got
th-
me a
I
little bit
I think
started
I
off.
just yeah, because I certainly wasn't focusing on the detail of what he was saying, but I
Yeah.
did leave that scene thinking this guy's a bit of a loony, and like not a full loony, but he's
Mm.
just he's a bit in his own world and a bit of a strange dude. And I guess that's probably what they wanted you to think. But you're right, you can definitely get lost in the detail there in a situation where you're not necessarily into the film at that point.
Hmm. The scene in the restaurant where Franco shows that power over the waitress. I
Oh yeah,
get why it was done. Um, but
super
I just didn't
uncomfortable.
like it. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really uncomfortable, and those actions to me were going too far above and beyond. Just roughing people up. That was like more serious, and I get what he was trying to do, but yeah, it was uncomfortable. I guess is
that's
the
the
right word to
thing.
say.
It showed the level he goes to in his job. It also showed you the side that he's like, if this guy isn't serious, if this guy's not going to see the side that he has to have for this job, then I'm wasting my time in the first place. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's what it was. And you know what? I agree. You watch that and you go, stop being a dick. Like you're being
yeah,
a pretty ordinary guy here. And the fact that he goes to confession and mentions it, you're like,
mm,
okay, he's super aware of what he's doing in that sense.
yeah.
So it got
And
redeemed.
yeah, and then the follow on for me is when Guido tries that when he takes Rena out, like as the same situation, and I'd already seen it once, didn't like it again.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
yeah,
Good call.
yeah. And the last thing I've got is when Guido they go to like they chase this guy all the way to his house, and then he's
Oh,
got
yeah.
his kid out the front, and he like tries to shake you know down the kid with give him some money, and I'm just like
Mm,
that was that point where he crossed that line, and
yep.
yeah, I just didn't like that either.
Take the human
But that was
side
that
out
was
of it.
probably
The
because that was like
business.
the
Yeah.
characters that I'm trying to enjoy and like, and I'm like, I get what you're trying to do, but you've just taken it too far.
They're testing you.
Yeah. So that were the ones that I had.
I think
But
there's
yeah,
some
I
good
wasn't a massive
pickups.
fan of.
Yeah.
All right, ideas time, themes, motifs, anything that like we've mentioned a lot about what this film's already
Yeah, we
been
have.
saying. So, what are
I,
some words that you've put it into?
I just the idea of, and this is just a part of it, but the idea of separating your job with your personal life, and do your morals filter over everything you do, and how far can you actually push it? And it's funny because morally, I actually probably agree with Guido, um, but I have a respect for Franco around his ability to compartmentalize and the measures that he takes to ensure he can actually keep moving. So he treats people like numbers on a page because at what point are they going to continue damaging themselves until he steps in? So it's
Yeah.
it's a tricky one. Like I know for me that I don't have the ability to push shut down my morals in one part of my life but not another. They just
Mm.
exist 100% of the time, and Guido was the same, and I, I
Yeah.
I
I think
sympathise with
that's
him
yeah.
more than Franco,
More
but
than
I just bloody respect the way Franco goes about it, and he just keeps moving forward, and he gets on with it, and he does the wrong thing, but he does it for a reason, and so yeah, that's
and you probably can tell that he's one of a kind almost, because when he first gets introduced to Guido, he cracks it. He's like, "Oh, not another person. I've got to try and
yeah,
try and show the ways." Obviously, people can't do what he does because it just does get to them.
yeah.
Yeah,
Let's not forget though that Guido put himself in this compromising position because he did the wrong thing in the first place. Like he was the one that was in numerous varying degrees of debt, and so what is the greater evil? because he gives up this job eventually. So is it making the most of your situation? So he got the opportunity to work in a profession that was largely frowned upon, that he didn't morally agree with, but he got paid well.
Yeah.
Or like, do you let your morals dictate to your point where you're unhappy in your own life? Which at the end of the day, sorry, at the end of the film, he seems to be pretty unhappy with his life still. So do you suck it up and go, well, at least this way I'm getting paid and I can make something of myself? Or I disagree with it so much that I would rather continue to be scraping around and getting involved in the wrong crowds and all that kind of stuff.
You've pulled this apart magnificently. Like,
I haven't stopped
I,
thinking about it.
it's good. I like it when a film like is able to do that and
Oh,
make you
yeah.
feel like that. So I mean, all the things I had, you've literally already discussed in such a good way. Like, just this idea of money, money over being good, like the system only helping like the rich, and
Yeah.
the moral ambiguities of this job, and
Yeah.
making people ashamed. That was a big thing too about them. That
Oh,
you've got
yeah.
to make them feel ashamed. So the debt almost becomes, that being ashamed is worse than debt, and they want to get rid of that debt so they don't feel ashamed anymore.
I
um
think that maybe that's another reason why I connect with Franco is because I personally I cannot stand debt. I hate it. It makes me feel sick. And I guess maybe shame is that word as well. So the fact that he's trying to make people feel the way I think they should feel
mm,
is something that resonates with me as well.
yeah. All right. So anything else, or are we ready to sort of talk about what we took away from this one?
I think I've got that one and taken it apart as much as I'd like to.
Good. All right. Well, what did you take from this one?
Well, this kind of goes to what I've been saying all along. Where I just the main takeaway for me is the questions that I was asking myself, and I think this comes with the fact that I just love that they were really complicated characters who don't necessarily fit into that sort of category that you would expect. Like you don't have your hero, you don't have your villain. They
Mm,
feel human and they feel real. And even chatting through this with you now, like I'm constantly like reassessing where I stand on the matter, or reaffirming, or whatever it is. Like these guys were really well-rounded characters, and the fact is, in real life, real people don't necessarily go, oh, well, now I've thought about it, this person is exactly right and this person is exactly wrong. That's not how it works, and
no.
that's fine, and,
Yeah.
and that's what I liked about it. How
Yeah.
about you? What, what
100.
did
Like,
you
yeah.
what did you take out of this?
I went for a completely. I just thought, hey, here's another foreign language film that
Mm-hmm.
is quite accessible.
Mm.
Not many people know about. Sort of sits there in the dark corridors of Netflix,
Yeah,
and
God, you're right.
I just feel like that. These. I know that they're probably not a priority for Netflix, but these are the types of films that people should know about and give a watch, because they might get something
It's,
out of it, like we have,
it
I
is.
guess.
This is so easy to watch, and I know we watch a lot of stuff with subtitles.
Hmm.
But man, you forget about the subtitles within 3 minutes of this film. Like you don't even recognize that this film is not being spoken in English. It is so
Hmm.
damn accessible. It is so relatable. It's got nothing to do with the fact that they're in Italy. Like this
No,
is just
not at all.
universal, and it's a
Exactly.
really good point. And we said the same thing last week with sometimes the
Sometimes.
Indian film. Um, so relatable, right? Like there's nuances to things, but the overall message and themes, you know, anyone can watch it and understand it and get something out of it. You're dead
Yep.
right on that one, mate. I like it.
Good. All right. IMDb. Did you go on to check anyone out?
Oh, I didn't, man. Like I'd love to jump on IMDb at some point to check something, but I'm just not that au fait with the Italian film industry, to be honest.
Yeah, me either. No one on there that looked anywhere near familiar for me. So, um,
But I tell
I
you
did.
what, I,
Yeah.
I I reckon I might try and check out some more work that my mate Marco Giallini did, because
Hmm.
super impressed by him, as I mentioned before.
Yeah. All right. Question time. Have you got something that you'd like to ask me?
I do. I think you've kind of answered this, but and it goes against everything I'm saying if you need to answer this explicitly. But which character did you connect with more?
Yeah, Guido.
You did, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I did. Yeah, yeah, because I just felt that yeah, I he had that sort of story for me that he needed to get out of his debt. He was able to get out of his debt, but at the end of the day, he still lost the girl. He's still nowhere. He's not doing any better in the world than he should be. But
Mm.
I just thought that was more relatable to me than some guy
But
who
he did,
like
but he did the right thing morally, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Anyway,
in that
that's yeah.
sense, that's when the film finishes, what kind of mood are you in?
It's a really interesting because it finished on that scene where uh, what's his name, Franco
Franco's.
walks out of confession,
Yep.
and to me, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but it's uh, it's very stereotypical of an Italian film. Of some like I haven't seen a lot of Italian films, but
Mm-hmm.
like there just had to be some involvement of the church somewhere, just with some sort
Sure.
of like touch on of, and that's like I wasn't even thinking of at the end of the film. I wasn't even thinking of the characters. I was like, oh, of course they're going to finish it in a church.
Oh, right. So you were
Yeah, that's
you
where I
were
was
ahead
at.
of them. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But I see. I would have thought if I had resonated more with Guido, I would finish that film feeling pretty flat, feeling like, you know what, this is tough. This is a tough situation to get out of. You know, poor bastard. He's
yeah,
doing everything right and he's still struggling. Because I enjoyed Franco more, I
okay,
finished this
yeah,
film kind of a bit pumped and going, well, that's how you do it. You know, that's how you keep moving on. It's still, again, it's not as clear cut. I still found
yeah.
myself asking questions, and I still am asking questions. But
I didn't because
uh,
I didn't even feel down and out about Guido. Like
okay,
I had sort of a feeling in me that he's going to be okay. Like I didn't
yeah,
have
yeah,
this, like I didn't have thoughts that he's that he's even lower than he was at the start. I thought, okay, this is what he needs to bounce back up and actually do the right thing now, and go and get a proper job, and
it's a good
build a
call.
relationship with someone that he possibly can. So I didn't walk out feeling down about it, but
Good call.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because he's definitely like he's got a strength of character to him. He has
Hmm.
learnt a hell of a lot in this past little however long the film goes for in that last profession. So you're right. It's not certainly not all doom and gloom. Just that symbolism of him sitting in that seat again really it really sat
Yeah.
with well with me. I just like well done. I like this. He's stuck.
Yep. All right. Any other questions?
Not for me, no.
All right.
But I want to answer some from you because you ask great
Good.
questions, Jesse.
I have a couple, just a few.
Yeah,
Um, I've got an answer that I think for this, but I don't. I want to hear what you think. So there's
yeah.
a couple of times where we saw Rena in the bar where she was working,
Mm.
and there were slow motion scenes, really slow mo scenes. Why do you think that they did that?
Um. Yeah.
Because it felt weird compared to the rest of the film when you've got they did it a couple of times where she's in the bar and it's all slow mo and the music's like really really slow.
Yeah. I'm just trying to exactly remember, but it could be one of two things in my mind. One of it is romanticizing her from Guido's perspective, but one of the
Yeah,
also is her steadiness and lack of
yeah.
rush in the life that she's living.
Yeah, I'm similar to that. I think she flows to a different flow to the rest of them. Like she's got
Yeah,
her own outlook on
her
life and
own
what she
beat.
wants to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, good. All right, I'm glad you thought that too. Um, the title, "Forgive us our debts," is obviously from the Lord's Prayer.
Yep.
Did you like it?
Is
Yeah,
it literally the last line of the film as well? Because he's reading the
yep.
Lord's
He
Prayer. I
says it.
think
Yeah,
he figured it out, and it just cuts. Loved it. Thought it was a great title.
good.
Because it's literally what the film's about, but then it's got that religious tone to it or
Turn to it.
undertone to it.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you like it?
Whew. Yeah, it wasn't bad, but
Uh,
to me, it just felt a little bit weird because I'm like from off the top of my head, the actual line, in sort of like Australian and Western culture, not like European culture, it's a different line. It's like "Forgive us our trespasses, not
Oh
forgive
yeah,
us our
true,
debts."
true, true,
So
true.
yeah, so that was just a little bit. I guess that's in a translation though. That's not that big a deal. That was just it. Just didn't. It sat weirdly for me. That was all.
Would you prefer if it was called "Forgive Us Our Trespasses"?
Nah, of course not.
Yeah,
But
because
it was
yeah,
just like
obviously
when
debt
it, yeah,
collectors. Yeah,
yeah. It's just mate when you like hear it, it just sounds weird when
yeah,
you're
yeah.
used to hearing it in a
Forgive Us Our
different way.
debts. Yeah.
I've got two more still. Sorry.
No, good. I love your
Why,
questions. The best part of the podcast.
like, why was it so important for Guido to pay the professor back when he gave him that money? He made a big deal about "Don't pay me back."
Yeah, that's
Is that
Guido's
because that's
character as
yeah,
well. He's not just because he had issues getting money doesn't mean he didn't feel absolutely guilty about using the professor or getting anything from the professor. Like even when he first wanted to use his freezer or whatever it was, his fridge, like he
mm,
kind of made it out like, oh, it stopped working again, as opposed to I didn't pay the electricity bill and I have no electricity. So he's got that pride to him that is always present, and he wants to work for his money. He doesn't want to take shortcuts anymore, and so I get that.
good. Yep, I like that. Nice job. Last one. car colors. Do you prefer metallic grey or red as a car color?
You are asking the worst person that I just do not care. But metallic grey, red's
Yeah.
a bit too cliche.
Yeah, I mean, I could, as long as the car goes, I don't care what color it
Yeah,
is.
I don't even know
Yeah,
what my car. I know what it looks like. I couldn't even tell you what the color is actually called though. I just
me either. It's, yeah, grey something.
yeah,
All right, well, I think we're almost ready to wrap this one up.
yeah. I think we are.
Our first non-sitting together remote recording.
Yes, I'll be interested to
Hopefully,
see how it
yeah.
actually sounds.
I'm nervous. I'm very nervous, but we'll hopefully it's listen. You can listen to it and it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. We've done our
So on,
research in
yeah,
in getting the right system set up.
yeah, well, yeah, I can hear you. You can hear me. That's a
Yeah.
positive.
Can anyone else hear us?
All right, so time to wrap this up where
Yep.
we each give our film a rating out of 5 to give it an overall Flix Forum average. So, MJ, fill us in on, or fill the audience in on what you're going to give this out of 5.
Yeah, well, I haven't really shied away from this. I've fired on all cylinders in this podcast, but I thought it was a pretty cool film. I thought the characters were fantastic. I thought the premise was great. It just had me asking these questions all along about moral conscience and rights and wrongs, and I'm still asking them, to be honest. I really enjoyed that journey. It's 3.5 stars for me.
Nice. Good, solid 3.5. So for me, yeah, it wouldn't have been an Italian film without like this discussion about religion and cars. And like it's nothing groundbreaking, but it plays along quite well. There's these good questions to ponder about debt, morals, faith. Can you compare these to your own life? And I think this is worth watching for people that might not necessarily have heard of this or seen this. So I am also giving it a 3.5,
Oh, good
which
man.
gives us an average of 3.5.
Yes.
So that's good. I'm happy. We are on
Have,
social media.
we've got a section that we sometimes do called "Did My Dog Bark?"
Oh
And
yes.
I don't have an update, but I can tell you that I'm podcasting from home at the moment, and I'm sort of locked in a little room. And I have heard the dog scratching on the door from time to time. So if there is any scratching, you guys might have been introduced to Todd or Bernie on the podcast as well. So
Good. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to, maybe we'll get a dog in the next film, and you can bring him in for a guest
maybe we will.
appearance.
Yeah, I'll get their opinion on the film as well. Yeah.
Good. So we're on social media. We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got
Mm-hmm.
Instagram. We pop a question up to see what people think. And the question for this one is, does the film properly address the difference between those who have the money and won't pay and those who don't have the money and can't pay?
Oh,
That's a big question. So I'm not expecting either of us to answer it, but I like that one. I thought that was a good one. I thought that was a really good
shit!
one.
Yeah, do they?
So yeah, think about that and maybe write your response on our social media post, because yeah, I think it needs a bit of thought, that one.
God, I thought I was done thinking about this film, Jesse. And you've got to go to another level now.
Good bit of homework. So yeah, we will be back next week again, hopefully, as long as this sounds all right.
Yeah, true. I can't
And
see the old coronavirus nicking away anytime soon. So this might be our future.
yeah, so we have a teen rom-com next week. It's a 2018 film called The Kissing Booth, which I've heard of.
I have also heard of this.
Yeah, heard of it. Yeah, it's directed by Vince Marcello. It stars Joey King, Joel Courtney, Jacob Elordi, and Molly Ringwald. Molly
Oh,
Ringwald.
really?
She's
There you go.
famous teen film star from the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're checking out next week.
Kissing
So
Booth.
I think a few people may have seen this one, so they may not want to watch it again. But if you do want to watch it and follow along,
Yeah.
feel free.
Got to refresh.
Yeah, and as usual, I've enjoyed having a chat, but I have missed your face.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing a photo of you wearing the Baby Driver t-shirt, and I can confirm or deny to our listeners next episode whether you actually did it.
It's all about trust. All right. Well, I will speak with you next week.
Sounds good, mate. I'll chat to you then.
Bye.
Bye.